Look at these three objects. What do they have in common? Where did I got them from? What's their story? On the south of Mexico, there is a state called Oaxaca, and there's also a city in Oaxaca called Oaxaca. I didn't have the chance to paint that much because I was traveling with my wife and my brother-in-law, so they weren't gonna wait for me like an hour to paint or draw. And this is the reason I wanted to paint something special to remember this trip once I went back home. It was my first time visiting Oaxaca. It's one of the oldest cities in Mexico. I never visited before. I live in the north of Mexico, and North Mexico and South Mexico are totally different things. So for me, visiting Oaxaca felt almost like visiting another country. This is the story and inspiration I needed to make this painting. If you're into cityscape painting or landscape painting, Oaxaca is perfect for this. It's really pretty. Everywhere you look, there's something you can paint. The streets are beautiful. There's so many places outside the city you can go. For this painting, I wanted these three elements to raise questions. So the people that would look at my painting would ask themselves like, why did he choose these elements? What's the backstory behind these elements? How do we give life and meaning to a still life? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. When we make a still life, at least for me, I need to find special objects to tell a story. A still life can tell a story. The first thing when we have a still life, and the most important I think, is a composition. Because composition tells you a story, and we want to convey story, and we want to tell a story through our composition. So that was the first question I asked myself. To answer this question, I started playing with these objects on my desk, playing a little bit with the light. I wanted to make these objects look volumetric and alive, so I needed to find a way to do this. The first object, which is pretty colorful and it gets your attention, which is the alebrije, I decided to put it on the front. The black cup was gonna be the second element, and then the biggest one was gonna be at the back. So it's pretty important in any sort of painting, even in landscape painting, to arrange your elements so they're one behind another. That's the way we can give scale and depth, which is really, really important when we are painting. For the color palette for this painting, I went with a pretty white color palette. Normally for landscapes, I try to not use many colors. I wanted to paint the objects pretty close to what I was seeing on reality. I did a gradient in gray, starting out with a cool gray at the top and then a warm gray at the bottom. Helps pushing the scene to the background and making the objects come to life. I like doing an underpaint. For this painting, I decided to not draw and just start with one color. I used burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, it's this like toasted orange. Once it was dried, I started adding color. The main advantage is it gives you like a base so you don't start adding color to a white background. With oil, the advantage we have is if you don't like something, you can just wipe it off and start doing it again. And that way you can move elements around. Each of these objects had a memory behind it. So at the end of the day, this is a way we can put our own memories into a painting, still life in this case. This is a black clay cup. This is as traditional as you can get in Oaxaca. They use mesquite, which is like a wood you can find all throughout Mexico. They fire it twice underneath the soil so it doesn't get oxygen, and it's like a slow process. The Mixtecos and the Zapotecos used to make these things like way back, and they used to do them for all of their stuff. Now they sell them as souvenirs, or you can use them in your kitchen to drink espresso maybe. It looks amazing with espresso. Are alebrijes a tradition in Mexico that goes way back? Many people would think so, but no. They were invented in 1936 by a Mexican artist called Pedro Linares, and they were originally made from paper. The alebrije, it's a mystical creature. It's a mixture between something fantastical or mythical with a real animal. In this case, I bought a fish, a small fish. You could also buy way bigger alebrijes. All of these are hand carved, like wood, and painted by hand. So they're really special. It's a really cool souvenir you can get over there. This creation was born because of a dream he had. It's a really cool story. Recommend looking into it. This was my favorite souvenir on the trip, and this is perfect for drinking either horchata, which is a rice drink, or maybe tejate. It's a drink made out of toasted corn, fermented cacao beans, mamey seeds, and cocoa flour. If you haven't tried it before, I really recommend it. I don't think this is either traditional or new, because Vicente Hernandez gets inspired by tradition in Oaxaca and takes it even further. This is the reason I love all of his designs. I'm a big fan of his work. Inside the cup, we can see this really intense blue, which is something I wanted to paint. And then the outer layer, earth tones without any tint. I really loved the mole in Oaxaca. I was actually actively looking to eat different mole in different places. You could find mole in fancy restaurants, or you can also find mole in these traditional mercados, which are like traditional markets. It's like a labyrinth. Once you go in the mercados, you see so much stuff and food and smells. It's like a culture shock once you enter these markets. Another important part and a special part of this trip for me in Oaxaca was exploring the mountains. Oaxaca City, it's in the valley, like in a central valley, and from there you can start climbing the mountains. On this trip, we found some really cool small towns in the mountains where you can go and have some like traditional coffee or traditional food. The towns in the mountains are not as touristy as Oaxaca City. So if you ever get the chance to visit Oaxaca, I really recommend visiting the mountain range. Everyone in Oaxaca is super friendly. When they really like you, they will always offer you mezcal. It's a type of alcohol made out of agave. For me, it was really strong, but when they offered it to me, I couldn't say no. People are always celebrating in the streets. If you have a wedding in Oaxaca City, you can pay like a local band and people, and they start like dancing in the street, walking with music. It feels like there's always sort of celebration on the street in Oaxaca. There's this place near Oaxaca City called Hierve el Agua. Hierve el Agua means basically like boiling water, and it has a lot of like minerals. So when it falls off a cliff, it starts building up like I think it's like calcium or something. It looks almost like a frozen waterfall. It's also a really cool place to visit. Something you can't miss out. There are some tours that take you into a small mountain. It's called Monte Albán. I think it's like a 1-hour trip to go there. Monte Albán, it's actually World Heritage from UNESCO, so it's pretty special. It's as good as an archaeological place can get. I think it was one of my favorite things to see. Even if you're not into archaeological things, it's worth visiting. It's way less touristy than the pyramids in Mexico City. You can walk throughout all the place. It's a Zapotec settlement. I think it was used for religion purposes. From this archaeological site, you can see the whole city of Oaxaca, and you can see all the valley around, you can see the mountains, and the place itself is pretty magical. It's pretty well maintained, it's pretty clean. I really enjoyed visiting Monte Albán, really recommend it. It was founded 500 BC, so it's a really old place. On the city of Oaxaca, there's a really special church. It's a Dominico church. Dominicos were French religious settlers, and they came to Oaxaca Center, built the church so they can teach religion to the indigenous people on the place. This church has a really beautiful garden. This garden has plants and cacti from all over Oaxaca in one place. It's also something really worth visiting. And the church also has a museum. In my opinion, Mixtecans and Zapotecans were the best artisans or artists back in the day because their stuff is so detailed compared to other cultures in Mexico, like the Aztecs. Something really magical that happened when I was visiting Oaxaca is we saw an eclipse, and the eclipse, we saw it through the camera because we didn't have the equipment to look at it. So I know you shouldn't do this, but you could see it because it was cloudy, and a lot of people were looking at the eclipse through the clouds. But I really enjoyed the result from the painting. I ended up making the fish a little bit bigger, and these cups, I think pretty much the same size. Something I didn't enjoy and I feel like messed up and I wish I made different was the cylindrical shape of the cup over here. It's a little bit like skewed to the side. This happened because I started with paint and not drawing. But you know, the point of painting is always learning something new. Being able to understand the takeaways and make it better next time. If you enjoy traveling and painting, you should subscribe to my channel because more is coming. If you watched the whole video, thank you. I really hope you enjoy it. Please give it a like. I'll see you next time.